On a warm summer night in 1992, 3 women disappeared from a quiet home in Springfield, Missouri, a peaceful neighborhood where families left their doors unlocked and children played in the streets until the porch lights came on. A house where nothing ever seemed out of place. Nothing ever seemed dangerous. Nothing ever hinted at the darkness that was coming. But by sunrise, that illusion was gone. The city awoke to a mystery that would haunt investigators for decades. A story whispered in classrooms, repeated in police stations, and carried like a shadow through the streets of Springfield. This is the story of Sherrill Levitt, her daughter Suzie Streeter, and Suzie's friend, Stacy McCall. 3 women connected by love, friendship, and a single night that changed everything. A mother, a daughter, a best friend gone without a trace. June 6, 1992. A night filled with celebration. Suzie and Stacy had just graduated from high school. They spent the evening moving from party to party, laughing through the excitement of their new futures. Photos were taken. Hugs were shared. Plans were made for the next chapter of their lives. They were supposed to sleep at a friend's house, but the house became overcrowded. Too many people, not enough space. So, just after 2 in the morning, they made a simple decision, one that seemed harmless, one that felt safe. They chose to go back to Suzie's house instead. It should have been the safest place they could go. Home. But it became the last place anyone ever saw them. What happened between 2 in the morning and sunrise has never been explained. There were no witnesses, no screams, no struggle, just silence. The kind of silence that hides something terrible. As the hours passed, the world kept moving. Neighbors watered their lawns. Cars left for work. Birds chirped in the humid summer air. And inside that quiet house, something unthinkable had already happened. The darkness swallowed 3 lives. And Springfield was never the same again. The case would grow. Dozens of detectives. Hundreds of interviews. Thousands of leads. But none of it could undo those lost hours. Those hours when 3 women vanished into the night. 3 women who walked into a house and were never seen again. The next morning, Stacy's family waited for her to return home. When she didn't arrive, they became worried. It wasn't like her. She was responsible. She told people where she was going. She showed up when she said she would. Concern grew. A few of Stacy's loved ones drove to the Levitt home to check on her. As they walked up to the porch, something felt off. The front door was unlocked. The porch light was shattered. A small detail, but unsettling. Glass scattered near the entrance like a warning hidden in plain sight. Inside, the house seemed peaceful, almost too peaceful. Nothing was overturned. Nothing was broken. There were no obvious signs of a fight or forced entry. The kind of calm that feels staged, manufactured, wrong. But then they saw something unnerving. All 3 women's purses were lined up neatly in the living room. Not tossed aside, not hidden. Placed deliberately. Keys, makeup, credit cards, money, everything intact, everything untouched. As if the women intended to return at any moment. Suzie's red Ford and Stacy's car were still parked outside. The beds looked slept in. The bathroom counter showed signs that someone had washed their face or brushed their teeth. There were no signs of panic, no signs of someone leaving in a hurry. Then the phone rang. A friend who was inside the home picked it up. On the other end was a man's voice. Calm, deep, cold. He left a crude and disturbing sexual message. It was chilling enough to send shivers down the spine of the person who heard it. When police later learned about the call, they couldn't determine whether the man was connected to the disappearance or whether it was a terrible coincidence. But even if it was unrelated, it added a layer of darkness that made the scene feel even more sinister. Slowly, the truth settled in. 3 women were missing, and the house had no answers. Detectives arrived quickly, moving through the Levitt home with trained eyes. They dusted surfaces for fingerprints, photographed every angle of every room, collected anything that might become evidence. They canvassed the neighborhood, knocking on doors, questioning anyone who might have seen or heard something. But the deeper they looked, the more unsettling the house became. There was no forced entry, no door kicked in, no broken window, no overturned furniture, no blood, no sign of a struggle. It was as if the 3 women simply stepped out of their lives and vanished. Detectives considered an uncomfortable possibility. The women may have opened the door willingly, or worse, they may not have had a single second to react. Investigators chased every lead with urgency. Ex-boyfriends were interviewed. Friends and co-workers were questioned. Local criminals with any history of violence were brought in for interrogation. Even people who barely knew the women were investigated, simply because the case had so few directions to turn. One suspect briefly drew heavy attention, a man with a documented history of violence, who had been spotted around Springfield in the days leading up to the disappearance. He fit the profile. He had the background, but after hours of questioning and days of digging, nothing connected him to the scene. No evidence, no witness, nothing. Rumors began spreading across the city. Residents reported a strange vehicle parked near the Levitt home in the days before the disappearance. Others recalled unfamiliar men cruising slowly through the neighborhood. Some even claimed they were approached and asked about Suzie by strangers who did not live in the area. Detectives followed these reports intensely. They built timelines, cross-checked sightings, tracked down car descriptions. But every lead that looked promising collapsed under scrutiny. Witnesses were unsure. Descriptions conflicted, memory blurred with fear, and each new clue dissolved into the same dead end. Then came a tip that ignited one of the most controversial theories in the entire investigation. A caller claimed that 3 women had been murdered and buried beneath a hospital parking garage. Authorities used ground-penetrating radar to scan the area. The radar revealed strange shapes under the concrete, anomalies that looked like disturbed soil, possibly large enough to conceal human remains. For a moment, investigators believed they were close to the answer, but officials refused to excavate. The evidence was not conclusive. The cost was enormous. The structural risk to the hospital was high, and so the ground was never broken, leaving the parking garage as one of the most haunting question marks in the case. As the years passed, new detectives took the case. Each brought fresh motivation, new theories, and modern forensic tools. But the trail was frozen, with no bodies, no weapon, no confession, and no undeniable evidence. Every promising lead slipped away. Every new tip ended in disappointment, and every hope slowly faded into the same cold mystery. Springfield began to wonder if the truth was buried somewhere they would never reach, whether the answers were hidden in silence, or whether the person responsible was still out there, watching the story fade with time. Years later, the investigation took a disturbing turn that shook even seasoned detectives. A man closely linked to convicted criminal Robert Craig Cox approached authorities with a message he refused to put in writing. According to him, Cox knew exactly what happened to the Springfield Three. Reporters tracked Cox down. When they confronted him, he didn't run. He didn't hesitate. He answered with a calmness that felt rehearsed. Calculated, almost triumphant. He said the women were dead. He said their bodies would never be found. He said he would reveal everything, but only when the time suited him. Not the police, not the families, only him. But when investigators pushed for details, he shut down. He refused to explain how he knew. He refused to say what he meant. He refused to provide a single piece of verifiable evidence. And because he was not charged with anything related to the case, legally, no one could force him to speak. To this day, his claims remain unproven, but the confidence in his voice sent a chill through the task force. Detectives could not dismiss the possibility that he possessed information no one else did. Yet they also could not ignore the likelihood that he was manipulating the spotlight for his own satisfaction. A man sitting in a prison cell, savoring the power of half-truths. Only he knows which of those possibilities is real. Even so, modern investigators have not abandoned the case. Over the years, they have re-evaluated fingerprints, re-examined evidence, and run updated DNA analysis using technologies that did not exist when the women first vanished. They have revisited old interviews, tracked down aging witnesses, and reconstructed timelines with modern forensic tools. But regardless of how many times the evidence is revisited, nothing new has been revealed to the public. The case remains exactly where it was in 1992. Open, cold, silent, and the house, the quiet and ordinary home where everything changed, still stands on East Elma, a structure frozen in time, holding secrets that have never surfaced. A silent witness to 3 lives taken by the shadows. A silent witness to a predator who moved with precision. A silent witness to a night that continues to echo in the heart of Springfield. Some investigators believe the women were taken by someone they trusted, someone who knew their routines, someone they would not have feared. Others suspect a transient predator, a stranger passing through Springfield who saw an opportunity and acted without hesitation. But the darkest theory is also the simplest. Someone was watching. Someone knew they were coming home that night. Someone waited in silence, studying the timing, the driveway, the lights, the shadows. And when the door opened, they struck with terrifying speed and efficiency. 3 women, 1 house. A window, of only a few hours, and a mystery that refuses to fade, no matter how many years pass. This is the story of the Springfield Three, a story etched into the memory of a city, a mystery still searching for answers, a case still waiting for justice. But this story does not end here. In part 2, we expose the evidence that was overlooked, the suspects who slipped away, and the secret Springfield still refuses to face. The deeper this investigation goes, the darker it becomes. If you want to know what investigators missed, who might have been watching the house, and why some people still fear the truth today, then do not miss part 2. Subscribe to Dark True Crime Archives and turn on notifications so you don't disappear before the next chapter.